I'm not a non-nervous parent. I'm a nervous parent, and I desperately want my kids to outlive me, and I want them to be safe, and I want them to be, happy and everything that anybody wants. But somehow I just didn't think that they were in danger every time they left the house. I didn't think they needed a security detail.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Gretchen Rowe for the Demi Learning Show, and I am so delighted to have Lenore Skenazy join me today. I've been waiting for this for a year.
Ooh.
I read her book, Free Range Kids, a year ago. I laughed, I cried, I was enthralled. You must read it, but that's not why we're here today.
That's one of the reasons we're here. That's a great it's
Absolutely.
a great book. Go on.
It is a great book. It's terrific. And what I loved about it is I think I might have been you in a little bit of secret as far as letting my kids free range, and I didn't even know that's what I was letting them do. So I am delighted to welcome you today. We're going to have an epic conversation. And Lenore, will you please be so kind as to introduce yourself?
So me, I'm Lenore Skenazy, rhymes with crazy. I am the president of Let Grow, which is a nonprofit that's promoting childhood independence. And I founded the book and the blog and the movement Free Range Kids, which says basically our kids are just a lot smarter and stronger and just better than our culture gives them credit for. Our culture is always telling us that our kids are fragile, that they can't handle anything, that everything bad is equals trauma, even if it's tiny. And really, I feel like we have a culture that's undermining our confidence in our kids, which then undermines our kids' confidence in themselves. So I'm just trying to say we're breathing it in. It's not our fault. It's out there, but it's driving us crazy.
I completely agree with you, and I'm really excited to have the opportunity to discuss this in a little bit more depth. I know that you have dug into this with a journalist's eye for detail, and I am excited to have this conversation. Lenore, where shall we begin? Because boy, this is like eating an elephant with a spoon.
My personal story begins many years ago when I let my 9-year-old ride the subway in New York City, where we live. And I wrote a newspaper column why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. And 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR, Fox News and NPR, uh, defending myself. And then I started the Free Range Kids blog because I felt like my message wasn't getting out, which is not, I'm not a non-nervous parent. I'm a nervous parent, and I desperately want my kids to outlive me, and I want them to be safe, and I want them to be, happy and everything that anybody wants. But somehow I just didn't think that they were in danger every time they left the house. I didn't think they needed a security detail. And I think that's what sort of put me out of step with the culture. And maybe it's because I'm older, but I remember walking to school when I was 5. That's, a long time ago. And then actually when I got to the corner, the crossing guard was 10. So that was back in the day when we used to think that kids could walk by themselves, and 10-year-olds were not only competent to walk by themselves, but could even stop traffic and help younger kids. And it upsets me as a reporter who can see that the crime was going up until the early 90s, and then it's been going down. And boy, I was just reading another article, like we're on record, 2025 could be the lowest crime rate on record in America. I know that seems impossible to believe. You just have to look at the FBI statistics. But 2024 was really good too. Things went up a little during COVID, but then they went back down following this general trend. And to act as if we're in 1993 when the murder rate was like 10 times what it is today, um, doesn't make sense if you want to, if you want to open the door and feel gratitude that we are living in never perfectly safe times, but pretty safe times. And if you know that independence is not a crazy thing to choose for your kids, it's something very healthy and helpful. I know what my kid needs. I know what I had. I know what helps kids thrive is a sense of independence, which leads to competence, which leads to confidence. And I want to give that to my kids. So all I'm saying is you can be very safety conscious and still giving your kids more independence than we usually do today.
Well, I just came off of a conference this past weekend, huge conference here in Florida, lots of kids, lots of parents. And I was amazed at the number of parents who you could see them become visibly upset when they couldn't have eyes on their children. And I sort of wonder what that does to kids to feel so fragile that you can't be out of your parents' sight. And you did an extensive amount of research when you wrote Free Range Kids. And what I loved about it is you gave us all that research with a great sense of humor.
Right, that I've lost. Alas. That's what happens when you're on the same topic for 17 years. Yeah, so there was a really interesting piece written in the Journal of Pediatrics that came out in 2023. And it said that as over the decades, not just since COVID and not just since the iPhone, but over the decades from the 50s to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, as kids' independence, independent mobility, getting themselves to school, walking around town, and free play, just playing not in a soccer uniform for a coach, but just like, hey guys, I got a mitt, you got a bat. As that has gone down over the decades, kids' anxiety and depression have been going up. And so I think what we have even in the last 10 years or so, thanks to tracking technology, has become a sort of self-fulfilling loop, which is that parents are able to see everything their kids do, and a lot of regular schools send home immediate like how the kid behaved in school that day and what their grade was that, on the Spanish quiz. And I've seen preschools that send home like almost like a NASA detailed report on like 9:57 child peed, 10:52 peed again, I hate to tell you what happened at 12:27, but another element entered, it's like number 1 and number 2, and it's like, why are we getting, and then it even has the exact time that the kid ate, 12:13 lunch eaten, all the apple slices and most of the chicken nuggets. I mean, maybe they don't give you the exact number of chicken nuggets, but I feel like we're getting so much information on everything our kids are doing, seeing, eating, reading, walking, how many steps they took, how far they went, what second they entered the door, did they get on the school bus, what moment they entered the school. And if you think back, I was talking to a pastor's wife the other night. I was like, in the Garden of Eden, the thing that gets humanity in trouble is they eat a certain fruit. And that fruit is from the tree of knowledge, right? They start getting information and things are bad. And I feel like we are just gobbling, like it's been mashed into applesauce and we're sucking it out of those little pouches now. We're getting so much information about every aspect of our kids' childhood that we feel like, oh, that doesn't seem perfect and that seems a little worrisome and maybe I should step in. And so we keep stepping in, and then that makes us think we have to step in more because then we're close to them and we watch like, oh, she didn't share the shovel in the sandbox, or he should have gotten a B and he got a B minus. The more information you have, the more worried you become. The more information you think you need, the more worried you become. So I'm blathering, but I think you see that there's a cycle here. We know too much about our kids, and the answer is to know less.
It does become a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, does it not? But I was thinking in preparation for our conversation today, I remember reading a book called The Face on the Milk Carton.
Ah, yes.
And that was such a wild I look back on that and I look at how my attitude changed about my own safety in that period of time. And I had a mother whose picture was in the dictionary next to overprotective. So maybe my pendulum swung a little bit the other way because I wanted to give my kids as much experiential learning as possible. And my kids were homeschooled, but I also vividly remember a neighbor down the street who drove past my house one day and called and said, "Do you realize the boys are on the roof?" And I said, "Yeah, I set the ladder up so they could get up there. They're running a science experiment." And she thought I was crazy.
What was the science experiment?
It was something to do they had made an anemometer to measure wind speed,
Oh,
and it wasn't working terrifically from the yard, so I said, "Well, go up on the roof and see if it will give you better readings." So and that was, 6 year no, uh, 5-year-old and an 11-year-old.
wow, you are way braver than me. Let the record show.
As a parent, now I'm grateful. My 6 kids are adults. My youngest is soon to be 20 next month. So how do we change our perspective so that we can give kids a little bit more latitude so they can learn on their own, so they can grow into having a confidence in themselves? And I think that's what you're saying with this connectiveness of care, we're creating anxiety.
Let me start out by just quoting Wendy Mogul. She's the one who wrote The Blessings of a Skinned Knee. She was sort of before the rest of us, recognizing that like letting go a little was really good for the parent and for the kid. And the thing she said that resonated the most with me was that it was kind of mean. She said, "Don't be surprised if sometimes you feel like your kids' friends are a little smarter or nicer or better than yours." And she said the reason, and we all feel a little guilty when we recognize that in ourselves, but the reason is that when you look at anything closely, really closely, you see the flaws. And right now, we are looking at our kids so closely, as we were just talking about, that we see everything that they're doing that's a little risky or a little dumb or not nice or not optimal. And so we want to step in. And when we step in, first of all, we stop the learning that was going on when they were trying this thing that was a little too hard for them or that they weren't doing perfectly, because now we've done it for them. And as we all know, the experiential learning requires the experience as opposed to the parent having the experience. But the opposite, if you can take a step back, that's the only thing I've seen that actually changes parents and kids. And so Let Grow was started about 8 years ago because Daniel Shuckman, who was chairman of an organization that fights for free speech, was talking to Jonathan Haidt, who most recently wrote The Anxious Generation. And
Which
they were seeing
I
that,
have to admit, the hardest book I have read in probably the last 5 years.
yeah,
I had to eat it in small bites, but boy, it was worthwhile reading, but it was tough.
yeah. So you get to the happy chapters at the end, which are the ones I got to help him with. And one was for parents and one was for schools. And the idea behind both of those chapters is that in a culture that has said you must be with your kids at all time. I mean, there are schools that won't let children get off the bus unless there's a parent waiting at the bus stop to walk them home, whether that's two feet away, 2 houses away, or 2 miles away. Either way, it doesn't matter. The parent has to be there. And so, when John and Dan were talking to each other about kids on campus feeling very fragile, feeling that when a speaker came to campus that they disagreed with, instead of thinking, I'm going to go and raise my hand and say, I read a study that says the opposite, or instead of, protesting that this guy is dumb out there, like you can, you're allowed to protest, you're allowed to have free speech. The kids felt so unsafe that they demanded that the speaker not even come to campus or that they have a safe room that they could go to, a safe space or a trigger warning. And and also that the kids on campus were availing themselves of the counseling services more. And I love the fact that there is less shame about the idea of needing a therapist or needing some counseling or needing some help. That's really good. But I am sad that the numbers of kids who feel they need this keep growing, and the problems that they're talking about seem often smaller than, you know, uh, less upsetting than you would have expected, like a mouse in the dorm or an argument with your roommate, which are sort of parts of life. God, there's a lot of mice here. So, yuck, but I'm not going to the therapist. Anyways, so John and Dan were talking about this fragility in these kids on campus, and they said, but trying to make them open minded and curious and excited about things at age 18, 19, 20 is a late stage intervention. Why don't we try to start out kids with a more open mind and more curiosity and more confidence about, like, I can talk to people I disagree with. I can be open to new ideas and not feel I'm threatened. And so John had read Free Range Kids and he was raising his kids free range. And so he said, well, let's do something with Lenore. And so they came to me and they said, let's start a nonprofit. And I said two things. One is we have to bring in Peter Gray, who is a psychology professor at Boston College, who writes about the importance of mixed age free play. What happens when kids are just playing on their own and they are arguing and they're figuring out what to do. So we brought him in, and we decided that Let Grow was not going to care about thought leadership. We were all thought leaders. Woohoo, doesn't matter. In my case, thoughts go like this. Oh, Lenore makes a lot of sense. Oh, I had such a good time when I was a kid. Oh, I loved playing outside. We played up till the street lights came home. But what if I kept my kid outside? What if something terrible happens to her? Oh my God, it would be all my fault. I could never live with myself. No, that's the circle, right? I mean, I just heard it so many times. I've lectured for 17 years around the world. Everybody, oh, yes, great. No, I agree. I agree. But no, nothing would change. So Let Grow was founded to be an action oriented, like all we care about is action. And the action that really helps parents breathe freely again and exult in their child's development and bravery and readiness for the world is you have to actually put the cart before the horse. And by that I mean you have to gently push the parents to let go of their kid, sort of like you were seeing at this conference, before they're ready to, because it's only by letting go and then having the kid come back and they got the milk for dinner or they walked the dog or they meant to get the bread but somehow they got candy bars instead, or they forgot to get their change or they got lost on the way home. It doesn't matter if it's a wild success or a silly failure. Either way, you realize like letting go felt scary and then fantastic. We are as hardwired as we are to worry. We're hardwired to be thrilled when our kids do something on their own. And that's a joy that our culture has leached out of us by saying you have to be with them all the time. And so by gently, so Let Grow in schools, which I realize I'm talking to the wrong audience here, but when we have schools do the Let Grow experience, it's everyone in the school gets the same homework assignment, all the kids. Go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And then we give a giant list. You can, climb a tree, go to the store, go to the skate park, whatever it is. Um, but you can even do this on your own, and you can certainly do it with some friends, or if you're in any kind of group, whether that's a book club or a church group or the people at the library that you see all the time. Everybody has their kid do something new on their own, and everybody gets this jolt of like, that was so fun, so much easier than I thought, and I feel so great. And look how proud my kid is that that's what releases you enough to do it again. And then the kid goes a little farther, or they do it a second time and you're a little less nervous, and they do it a third time and you forgot to look up, right? Of course they're getting of course they're walking the dog. That's their job now. And so it seems like this fear, like you were talking about at this conference, is so icy thick, like ready for ice fishing. Like you have to drill down, and that's how thick the fear is. But it turns out that the fear is really this thin layer, and you can crack it with one or two times of letting your kid do something on their own, and then comes the thaw, and then comes the joy.
You know, I think I understand. Uh, for me, it has always been that way. I mean, my 18-year-old planned a trip to Italy by himself with a couple of friends last year. He also went to Las Vegas to see a concert in the Sphere
Oh, the
when
sphere, how cool.
when it had first opened. And he, as an 18-year-old, was doing that on his own. And my friends were like, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "No, I raised him to be independent. These are my expectations." I have a 26-year-old who's about ready to go hike the Continental Divide Trail from end to end. He's going to be gone for 5.5 months.
Oh my God.
I think, you know, my mother would have given birth to kittens if I had suggested something like that. So maybe it's a little bit different of a culturation, but does it also come from the fact that it's harder for us to even get kids off the sofa now than it was when I was raising my children?
Yeah, there's so many factors that sort of led to this insular childhood. And certainly most recently there's phones. But I also think of phones as like, well, we were already denying kids the chance to walk to the store or to, go out and play till the street lights came on. And then we gave them a portal. I always think of like Narnia. Remember The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? And the portal happens to be a phone, and that's where they can go and hang out with their friends, play games, go on quests, find out new things, flirt, laugh, and so at least they have this place to go, which is an alternative world where they can be kids again. I mean, So the other Let Grow initiative, besides the Let Grow experience, sending the kids home with the homework, go outside and do something on your own, is we ask schools, and it can be homeschool associations, it can be libraries, to stay open for this mixed age, no phones, free play. And what you have there is, you have a critical mass of kids because it's school, so some of them stay, right? You have some adult there, but they are tasked with being a lifeguard. They just are there, crouching with an EpiPen, but they don't organize the games. They don't solve the arguments. They're just there in case of emergencies. And then you put out loose parts, or the kids put out loose parts. They can bring them from home, an old typewriter and cardboard boxes and balls and chalk. And God, I was just talking to a lady who did this for a week with high school students. They had a 1 week sort of in school break and they could do anything they wanted. You could learn crocheting, you could learn video making, and some of the kids just wanted to play. And she was worried because these kids were like 15 and she thought they barely played. They've been in travel soccer their whole lives, right? But she had the brilliant idea of also mixing them with, I think it was like first and third graders. I'm not exactly sure how young the youngest kids were, but the older kids were, I think, sophomores in high school, or sophomores and seniors. And you don't need to learn how to play any more than you need to learn how to go down a slide. It is instinctive. You see this thing, you want to go from here to here, right, on your butt. And so that week of playing, they made up games. They didn't like the game they made up. They changed it. At first it was going to be everybody off the island, then they wanted everybody on the island. And then she was so smart. She did a before and after study, asking kids the week before, like, how many friends do you have? How anxious are you? How much do you dread getting up in the morning? These are New York City private school kids. There's a lot of dread. And then she measured it at the end, and like they'd made new friends, of course, because they'd met these little kids, and also they'd been in this new group of whoever wanted to play. And the easiest way to feel like you have some worth in the world, have some cool ideas, make friends, have a reason for getting up in the morning is free play, is fun time with your like, this is for me, this is my free play today. I knew I was going to get to talk to you. I was excited. Today's not going to be boring. I get to talk to somebody. Yay. So if you keep the schools open for that kind of free play, it turns out that kids love it more than their phones. And I heard of one guy who started we call it a Let Grow Play Club. I don't care what you call it. But if you call it that, then our donors know that Let Grow Play Clubs are growing around the country. Anyways, this one was in Jakarta for some reason. And the guy who was running the school, the headmaster, started a Let Grow Play Club 5 days a week. And his own kids came. And for the first 3 days, they both sat on the bench like this because they couldn't go home and play with their phones. And then by day 4, they were so bored that they started playing. And now, of course, nobody misses their phones because they have what they were programmed by Mother Nature to want, which is time in a group, different ages, playing, and not on 2 dimensions. You got all 5 senses going, and friends that you see again. We did a study once of asking kids, what would you like playing online better or in real life? And one kid poignantly said he likes video games, but when he takes off his headset, there's no one there. So this way, a play club, it's so simple. Whatever else you were going to do after school, offer this as well. Whatever else you were going to have, you're going to have a knitting club at the library. You're going to have a book of the week club at the library. Also have free play. It's just like giving kids food.
Well, I can't believe we're at the top of the hour. What
Oh yeah.
words would you have for our listeners today, Lenore? This has been so much fun. I can sit and listen to you forever. So,
People always say that. I always think that's like, Lenore, you really talk a lot. Here, we're calling this an end. My words are of empathy, which is that it is hard to stay hopeful and positive in a culture that's constantly this din of doom that something terrible will happen to your kid and it'll all be your fault and you will never forgive yourself if, and then fill in the blank. And then they fill in the blank every day with every possible disaster. And um I hope we can together reject this culture that's driving us crazy. And the way we do it is by believing in each other, believing in ourselves, believing in our kids. And also, I wanted to start a petition like promising grace. Like if something bad does happen, you know, if your if something terrible happens to your kid, my first reaction won't be like, well, Gretchen, that'll show you. It should be, there, but for the grace of God go I. And my heart goes out to you, and we will never understand how this universe works. As opposed to, if you were a better mom, you'd be smiling today. It's just, I want us to all give each other the benefit of the doubt.
Yes. Yes. I think those are very wise words. Lenore, I want to thank you for spending this hour with
Oh,
us.
so
I
fun.
think you have provided us with enormous food for thought. I will make sure that the Let Grow website and your book and Jonathan's book are all included in the show notes.
Oh, great.
If you're willing, I'd love to include your study guide because I think I might have hit on something that I want to get some homeschool moms to do.
You
And
know
that,
what? I'm gonna give you, I gotta find, like, where do you, like, how do you write away for the study guide? I'll give you the link, because
okay,
then at some point, someday, I've gathered all these email addresses. I've done nothing with them, but someday I will. So I want those email addresses, and I'll definitely send you the link.
terrific. That would be amazing and awesome. Lenore, thank you so much for your time. I know our audience can see how much virtue I found in getting the opportunity to talk to you. And I will look forward to being invited into our guests' living rooms again soon. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Lenore, I'm grateful. Thank you for
I'm
the
grateful too, Gretchen. Thank you
take
so
care.
much.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.